Hey guys, and welcome to Game Jam, and today I'm here to talk to you about Junkrat. So if you haven't heard already, there was an update to Junkrat recently released with a patch, and if you read it here, the concussion mine now will deal less damage to targets farther away from the explosion center. Reading the developer comments here that are listed, it says, Junkrat has been enjoying the flexibility his double charge concussion mine provides, but it has become a bit too easy to throw out huge bursts of damage in a large area. With this change, he can still dish out a similar amount of damage, but he must now be more accurate with his tosses. So what I'd like to do with this video is discuss the stats that we see from Junkrat, compare them to other heroes, and see whether the nerf makes sense, and whether we could see a problem with Junkrat stats just by looking at that alone. So let's take a look at this chart here that I have. This is the correlation that shows which stats are most important for either winning or for gaining SR, or both. I'm going to focus in on this Diamond to GM category. This is just to keep the analysis more focused, and we're focusing on the highest level of players. Going through the stats, I'm going to focus here especially on this win percentage column. You have final blows is one of the most important stats to a good Junkrat, followed by eliminations, cards, time on fire, and then finally solo kills. Going through this max percentage as well, the categories are fairly similar. The difference is that you also have concussion mine kills, melee final blow, and hero damage done. So these are all things that make sense. Junkrat is an offensive hero, so you'd expect him to deal damage. So using this information and keeping that in the back of your mind, we're going to go through those stats one by one and compare them to other heroes so we can see how Junkrat fares along with everybody else. So here's what I've done. I've set up a graph showing hero damage, barrier damage, and all damage. What I've done is aggregated a bunch of stats from a bunch of different players. We are averaging the output for Diamond to GM level. And this is all stats from before the patch change. So the patch change happened on January 30th. We got the data literally, I think it was January 29th. So it's all from Season 8. And what we want to do is look at which characters deal the most damage. We're trying to focus in on a few key stats and analyze them kind of one at a time. So when sorted in order, Bastion is the top damage dealer, is kind of what you'd expect. You'll notice here that his overall damage is 19,000. His hero damage is 10,900 per 10 minutes, which is pretty high up there. But Junkrat is not that far behind in second place. So if you look at that number, and you can see on the graph here that the all damage spikes up for Bastion. But if you compare Bastion and Junkrat right here, they're actually not that far off from each other. They're only off by 600, which is like, less than like 5% or so. And so looking at this and starting with as your initial assessment of hero balance in the game, you may think, okay, well, Bastion looks pretty strong. But what you may not know yet from this data set, because I haven't shown it to you yet, is how many players does this playset take into consideration. So we were grabbing, the data that I'm getting here is from the creator of Oasis, which I will talk about later, or maybe at the end of the video or something. But when collecting player data, what I found out from this data is I had 400 Junkrats from the Diamond to GM level to look at for data. For Bastion, I had 20 players. And so we're looking for players that had a significant amount of playtime. We were getting rid of players that had less than 5 hours of playtime. So people don't play Bastion all that much. And what that ends up showing is that Junkrat can be played on many maps, but Bastion is usually played on a few maps. I mean, let's be honest, we really mostly play him on Junkertown, right? You can see Bastion played out in some other places, but he's not a main staple hero that you would see all the time. So that's where, even though Bastion might be number one, Junkrat is kind of, he really is the number one, because you can't consider Bastion if he's only played 2 or 3% of the time, right? That number was arbitrary. It's not exactly 2 or 3%. But anyways, if you compare Junkrat to the other heroes, he is ahead in the all damage department and in the hero damage department, he's kind of close to Soldier and Pharah. The difference is he is a little bit ahead of them, and he gets more barrier damage done. You can see the difference here is 5,700 versus 3,400. So he looks pretty good on the damage categories. So there was other stuff to talk about, so let's go look at some other stats. Okay, so I finally got my graph set up. So this next section we're looking at here is eliminations, objective kills, and deaths. Those are normal stats that you would look at when you're playing the game, and so I figured we should take a look at those and see where Junkrat fits in that lineup. So I sorted them in order, and this time Junkrat appears kind of toward the bottom of the list. He's got 22.5 eliminations per 10 minutes, which puts him at 10th place here. I was actually a little bit surprised about this being so low, but I think what's happening here is that Junkrat has a tendency with his mines and his grenades to kind of focus down one target. Yes, he does try to deal damage to multiple heroes, but it's not quite like a soldier or tracer that can switch targets super fast. He's kind of a little bit more methodical because his damage is so bursty, and it's not like, the concussion mine does to have a radius, but that doesn't necessarily, it's more likely to focus in on one target than just everybody all at once. Or at least that's what the data seems to suggest. Because if you're looking at eliminations here, Reaper does a much better job at about 26. We have Tracer here at about 25. Pharah is at 25. Soldier's at 25. So he's not that far off, but he is a little bit lower in that regard. If we also talk about objective kills, which is another stat you might be looking at in-game, he ends up being 11th on the list. He's only got 8 objective kills per 10 minutes. And that would just suggest that I think Junkrat does a better job when he is focusing people in a narrow area. And generally, payloads and objectives have a little bit more leeway. Now, not tons more, but he can do a better job when he's in a doorway than he can be on an open point. So he's not always going to be applicable quite like a Pharah or a Reaper coming in because everybody's there. He can do do his job. And then finally, the last category is deaths. Now, he's at the 4th, which is actually toward the top of the list, and you think, obviously, deaths are bad, so you want to be lower on the list if you can. Junkrat dies quite a bit, and that kind of makes sense with how the character's played. What ends up happening a lot of times is that you're going to go for the kills, and because of the Mercy Res meta that was happening at the time before this patch was released, Junkrat could afford to die just to get the kills. It was important. So those are the stats for these characters. You can take a look at this list real quick, and then we're going to set up to talk about some stats that you can't see until you look at your career stats, but I can show you, such as solo kills and final blows. All right, now we're getting to the juicy stuff here. So what we've done is I've sorted for final blows, solo kills, and multi-kills. And you'll notice that the discrepancy between them is final blows is something that happens all the time because that's just when your hero icon appears next to the name that's getting killed, you got the final blow, right? So up here at the top is Reaper at 15 solo kills per 10 minutes. Which means he's pretty effective. And Junkrat ends up coming in 4th place, so he's pretty good at getting those final blows. He's right there next to Widowmaker, as a matter of fact. But even though I think that's an important stat for him, you'll notice that a lot of the main heroes are kind of high too. They're all right around that 14 to 15 range. Genji's at 13.8, so pretty close. Doomfist 13.79. Tracer and Soldier have a little bit of a drop off. But, there's other ways they kind of make up for it. And then Torbjorn, Sombra, and Mei are the ones that kind of fall off a cliff as far as they're not in the same level as the rest of the heroes in this category. But I think the most interesting stat here is probably solo kills. So solo kills, Junkrat is actually 2nd place. When you look at Junkrat right over here, he's getting 3.8 solo kills per 10 minutes. Now, a solo kill is when Junkrat is able to, or any hero is able to kill another hero completely by themselves with no help. Assist may count, not 100% sure, but they deal all the damage by themselves, right? So, in that sense, the only person that competes with Junkrat is the Widowmaker at 4.75. And I think this stat is actually the key to understanding where Junkrat kind of fit in the meta. If Junkrat is able to get solo kills, He's able to go on flanking routes. He's able to go out of his way to get people, and he's very effective at doing it. And then he also doesn't need team support, so he can kind of do his own thing in some sense, right? And as you know, if you play Junkrat, there are ways for you to fire your gun at enemies without being seen yourself. You can fire up and over walls. You can do deflecting shots. There's many different ways to spam, right? Not to mention throwing the concussion mines out. So I think this is the stat that we need to pay attention to. When this patch goes effect, which it did go into effect as of this point last week, what I'd hope to see with the data is that Junkrat solo kills should go down to a more acceptable levels, and maybe somewhere around, maybe not Hanzo level, but maybe like Reaper's level. We want the orange bar to be closer to the average as opposed to being up toward the top of the data set here. It's not bad that he's able to execute solo kills. He just shouldn't be able to do it potentially so effectively, and that might be why people feel he is difficult to deal with, or that he feels so good to play with. So the other thing here too we've got is multi-kills. I don't think multi-kills really mean all that much. Even the strongest multi-kill on this list is Reaper, is at 0.61 multi-kills per 10 minutes. Basically he's barely able to get multi-kills. And that just means getting kills in quick succession. Junkrat is in the 7th on the list, so I don't think that's really a problem. So finally, after all of this, there is offensive and defensive assists, but there's really only one other stat that I think would be really interesting, is to look at ultimate kills. So what I did is I put a comparison where I said, if an ultimate is able to generate kills, where would Junkrat fit on that list? So let's take a look at that next. All right, the last but not least stat is a look at Junkrat's ultimate kills. So as you know, Junkrat a while back received a buff to his Riptire, so the Riptire would go a lot faster, could climb walls. It's kind of crazy. But what's ended up happening is that if you compare Junkrat's tire to the rest of the offensive and defensive class as far as ultimate kills are concerned, Junkrat's kind of in the middle. He's only 7th place. And if you compare him to other characters, there are other characters that are simply more effective than he is. And so that's where I think it was a very good decision that they didn't do anything to affect Junkrat's ability to land an ultimate kill. If we were to see this number go down, people would say, oh, that the tire is useless, it's not very effective. It's only effective in a combo or whatever thing. And we don't want that to happen. I think Junkrat's in a good place in that sense. Arguably, you could say that Junkrat could use a minor buff to the tire. But again, somebody's going to be on here and be like, "What? Are you crazy?" So I'm just saying the data suggests that he is kind of toward the lower end of the pack. You could buff it, and it shouldn't, as long as it didn't suddenly shoot up to Genji levels. It would still be relatively balanced according to the stats that we're looking at right now. So that is kind of it. Those are all the stats I wanted to present to you guys. Please let me know if you have any questions about any of the data I presented, and I'd be more than happy to look at the data further and answer any questions. And so I want to take this approach and apply it to other heroes, so we can talk about whether other heroes, do they need to be buffed or do they need to be nerfed? So you can look forward to that next. Let me know what hero you want to see in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.